You have never taught a child to survive. Not really. You have taught a child to pass a test. You have taught a child to sit still, raise a hand, wait for a bell. For almost the entire history of your species, none of that existed. But the real answer to how children learn to survive is far stranger and far more trusting than anything happening in a classroom today. Picture a 5-year-old holding a real knife. No adult is hovering over her shoulder. No one is grating her. She is carving a stick into a digging tool, and if she cuts herself, she will learn something a lecture could never teach her. This was not neglect. This was the plan. For roughly 200,000 years, human children did not learn survival from instruction. They learned it from immersion. Your ancestors did not sit their kids down and explain how to track an animal or start a fire. They handed them a smaller version of the real tools, let them stand nearby, and let curiosity do the rest. Why does that sound almost irresponsible to you now? Because your brain has been trained by a very recent invention. School, in its modern form, is barely 200 years old. Your instincts are built on a foundation nearly 1,000 times older. And that foundation ran on a completely different logic. Anthropologist Barry Hewlett spent years living among the Akao people of Central Africa, a foraging community whose way of life still echoes deep hunter-gatherer patterns. He documented something you might find hard to believe. Aka toddlers are allowed to handle knives, machetes, and fire, often before they can speak in full sentences. Parents do not stop them. Parents watch, quietly, from a short distance, ready to step in only if something truly dangerous unfolds. This was not carelessness. It was a different theory of the child entirely. In your world, a child is seen as fragile, someone to be protected from the world until they are ready. In the world Hewlett studied, a child is seen as capable, someone the world is already teaching. The difference sounds small. It changes everything. Researcher David Lancy, who has spent decades comparing childhood across cultures, found a pattern that repeats again and again in foraging societies. Children are rarely instructed directly. They are simply included. They tag along on gathering trips. They sit near the fire while tools are made. They are given small, real tasks long before they are given real explanations. Think about the last time you learned something difficult. Was it from a lecture? Or was it from doing the thing badly, over and over, next to someone who already knew how? That second kind of learning has a name now. Psychologists call it legitimate peripheral participation, a complicated phrase for a very simple idea. You start on the edge of a skill, watching, barely contributing. Slowly, your role grows. Eventually, without ever being formally taught, you are the one doing the skill yourself. This is how a child in the Kalahari learns to track an antelope, not through diagrams, through years of walking behind, adults who are tracking, noticing footprints, noticing questions, noticing silence when the hunt requires it. But here is where it gets stranger. You have never taught a child to survive. Not really. You have taught a child to pass a test. You have taught a child to sit still, raise a hand, wait for a bell. For almost the entire history of your species, a huge amount of ancient survival education did not look like education at all. It looked like play. Researcher Shayna Lou Levy, who has studied childhood among the BaYaka and other Congo Basin foraging groups, found that children spend enormous amounts of their day in unsupervised mixed-age playgroups. A 6-year-old plays alongside a 12-year-old. A toddler tags along after both of them. And within that play, real skills are being rehearsed constantly. Tiny bows are shot at tiny targets. Miniature shelters are built and rebuilt. Pretend fires are cooked over with pretend food, using techniques copied almost exactly from the adults nearby. None of this was assigned. None of it was mandatory. It simply looked too much like fun to notice it was training. Your brain, right now, still responds to this kind of learning far more powerfully than it responds to a worksheet. Notice how much easier it is to remember a skill you stumbled into while playing than one you were forced to memorize. That is not a coincidence. That is your ancient wiring, still running underneath your modern life. There is something else that made this system work. Something almost invisible unless you go looking for it. Trust. Ancient children were trusted with real stakes far earlier than you might expect. A mistake with fire could burn. A mistake with a blade could cut. A mistake tracking an animal could mean walking home with nothing to eat. The lessons were not softened, because the world itself did not soften them. But the community around the child was thick, layered, constant. If a parent was busy, an aunt was nearby. If an aunt was busy, an older cousin was nearby. Anthropologists studying groups like the Hadza of Tanzania have noted that children are almost never truly alone with a task. They are alone with the risk, but never alone with the responsibility of recovering from a mistake. That combination, real danger paired with dense support, is almost the exact opposite of how modern childhood is structured. Today, danger is minimized as much as possible, while emotional and social support is often stretched thin, spread across a single household, instead of an entire extended camp. Which system do you think produces more confidence by adolescence? Compare that to how failure feels to you now. A bad grade, a missed deadline, a single mistake magnified by an audience, sometimes an audience of strangers online. Somewhere along the way, the failure got heavier, even as the stakes got smaller. That mismatch might explain something you already feel but have never quite named. A strange, low hum of anxiety around getting things wrong, even when the actual consequences of being wrong are almost nothing. Your nervous system was calibrated for a world where mistakes were frequent, expected, and immediately followed by another attempt, watched over by people who had made the same mistake before you. Modern life removed the danger. It forgot to remove the fear. There is one more piece worth sitting with. Ancient children were not taught survival as a subject separate from life. There was no survival class that ended at 3 o'clock. Survival was simply what living looked like, all day, every day, folded into cooking, walking, playing, watching, failing, trying again. The lesson and the life were the same thing. Somewhere in the last few hundred years, your species split those two apart. Learning became something that happens in one place, for a set number of hours, disconnected from the actual living you do the rest of the day. It is a strange, historically brand new arrangement, and your brain has not fully caught up to it. So the next time you watch a child play, building something, breaking it, building it again, ask yourself what it might actually be preparing them for. Ask what part of you was built the very same way, long before you had a name for it. You have never taught a child to survive, but somewhere inside you, a child once learned exactly how, simply by being trusted to try.